What's going on, y'all? It's Kilo, and we are back for another episode of the regular podcast on the regular network.
It's real.
And what's his name again? Kilo?
Shout out my Kilo, man. Kilo in the mother building.
What up? How y'all feeling? Please, before we do anything else, make sure you like the video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Make sure you share your thoughts below. Comment your thoughts below. Hit the notification bell to make sure you stay tuned in, tapped in, all that good stuff. It's been 2 weeks. I know, ridiculous. I'm a very ridiculous human being. Okay, I told y'all if we get to 4,500 subscribers, we would do a giveaway, right? And we'll be giving away the regular network. I hope y'all want it. Hope y'all like it. What we'll do is do a random number generator. We're pretty much picking between the people who did the survey. Okay? Between the people that did the survey, there are 36 entries. Some people did it multiple times, but we are going to, you only get one shot. Okay? Let's go. We're going with this random Google random number generator, right? Okay. You know, it's nothing too fancy. All right, we're going to pick three people. All right. So we're going to get your number, and then I'm just going to run through the list and find that number on the survey results list. All right. First up, we got number 34. We have, let me write this down so I don't forget. I shouldn't forget. But let me make sure I don't forget. Okay. Excuse me. We got number 34. Next up, number 23. And number 13. 34, 23, 13. And what we'll do is when y'all help me get to 5,000 subscribers, we'll do something bigger, and we'll give out 5 of the thing that we give out, whatever it is at 5,000. For 4,500, we're going to give out these black tees. Maybe we'll do another color. We'll see. We'll see what color y'all want. Let's go find who is so number 34 is somebody in Australia. That's fire. Let me see. Their email address is tac2social. So shout out to them out there in Australia. That's the first winner. Let's go. Number 23 is somebody in Conyers. Shout out to Conyers, Georgia. Lena White 729. Lena White 729. Shout out to you. Lady Loves Life. I know that name. I've seen that name for sure somewhere. And then the third winner is number 13. That would be, it's Rebecca Starr. Shout out to Rebecca. I know who that is. I follow Rebecca. Okay, so our 3 winners for the regular network tees for the $4,500 raffle. We got Tac2 Social. Shout out to you all the way from Australia. Shout out to Lena White 729 and Rebecca Starr. I'm going to reach out to y'all. I have your email address right here. I'm going to reach out to y'all. Shout out to everybody for participating. As always, please, if you want to be included in future raffles, it's free. All you have to do is go to the description box, find the survey link, fill out the survey. If you have not filled it out, fill out the survey, and you'll be in the running for the raffle. The people who watch this channel all the time, I think it's time to just make sure that y'all have merch. So if you're an avid watcher of this channel, be on the lookout. I'm gonna reach out to you too. I know who's watching regularly. Shout out to the love and the support. I support y'all too, man. If you ever got anything going on, just reach out to me. Let me know. I'll speak about it on here. No problem. Okay. I'm recording this on February 28th, the last day of Black History Month. And I just came home. It's the nighttime right now. I just came home from a Black History Month program. at Antioch Lithonia Baptist Church. And I will say, honestly, one of the best Black History programs I ever seen, Black History Month programs I ever seen. Very, very well written because it was put together by one or two people. The script was written by one or two people. Very well performed. So even though they had a few people writing the scripts, they had a lot of performers. My mom was one of them. My little cousin was one of them. A bunch of people, right? And they killed it. My mom had a person that was actually very interesting to me because I felt I was a little annoyed with myself, right? I was annoyed with myself because I wasn't familiar with this lady. Her name is Rose Sanders. That was her name before she changed her name. Rose Sanders. And the reason she's important to this podcast specifically is because she's actually the lawyer behind the Pigford cases. Pigford 1, Pigford 2. Y'all have heard me talk about Black farmers and all the stuff that they lost and won over the decades and a century, right? The person that my mom was portraying in this performance today is the person behind the lawsuits against the USDA that won $1 billion for Black farmers. The fact that I did so much research on the Pigford case and focused so much on the outcomes that I didn't even think about who was defending these farmers. Like that's what annoyed me about myself. I was annoyed that I never took the time to research the people that defended the Black farmers. And that was Rose Sanders and her husband, Hank Sanders, in their law firm out of Alabama. So shout out to them. The lady Rose Sanders is actually still alive right now. So there might be an opportunity to meet her. If I have that opportunity, I'm going to go ahead, go visit her, go meet her, right, with my mom. And I'll bring the footage back to y'all. I'm going to package it up. I recorded my mom doing her performance. I'm going to show that to y'all too at the same time. So be on the lookout for that. But yes, this was a great Black History program. I felt like it was up there with, this is fictional, but it was real information. The Black History Month program that they did on A Different World, it was up there like that. For me, it was actually better. But, they had time to get it right, decades to get it right. But like I said, it's one of the best I've ever seen. Black History Month was really put together by Carter G. Woodson because he wanted to tell the stories of really Black American people that have been erased, right? So he didn't put it together for the most commonly known Black people. That wasn't who he was trying to celebrate. Although we want to celebrate them all the time, but normally they are celebrated. Generally, those people are often celebrated. Frederick Douglass, Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks, Malcolm X, Marcus Garvey, Huey P. Newton, a lot of these people are regularly celebrated. So when we do programs for Black History Month specifically, it was put together to stop erasure. Okay, it's for the people who are being forgotten or erased deliberately. So this program was the perfect production of that type of ideology. Shout out to them. They even put together a Booker T. Washington and W.E.B. Du Bois debate. Even though those are some well-known figures, a lot of people don't realize that they had disputes during their lifetime when they were together. When they were both alive at the same time, there were disputes, and it really split the Black community in half with people who agreed with one side versus the other side. That's not talked about a whole lot. So I love that they did that. Mary McLeod Bethune interjected in that debate to add her input. So it was great. It was great. So if y'all, I don't know if they're going to put it on the internet. I have a few videos of it I'm going to post up. So make sure you check me out on the THEE regular podcast on Instagram and the regular podcast on TikTok. And of course, this YouTube channel, right? Finishing off the last Black History Month day, I want to talk about somebody who was also very, very much not talked about that often. Let's go ahead and read a little bit. Let's read a little bit. This is from the Mayo Clinic, right? Big time. Y'all know the Mayo Clinic out there in Minnesota, right? Black History Month honoring Dr. Charles Richard Drew, right? Charles Richard Drew, medical doctor from 1904 to 1950, surgeon and researcher. He's considered the father of the blood bank. Okay, He died very young because he supposedly died in a car accident while he was on his way to have a speaking engagement. So for him to have done what he did by the age of 45, there's no telling what he would have been able to do had he, been able to live a full life. Another thing, there's a high school named after him. That high school used to be very close to my last house. It's called Charles R. Drew High School, right? That's actually the school that when Colin Kaepernick was trying to get back in the NFL, he did a tryout. He did the tryout at the Charles Drew High School football field. So that's like a little fun fact. This black man trying to get back in the NFL. So he declined to do the tryout at the field that they wanted him to, which might have hurt him. But he did it at, a school with a very powerful name. Let's read about this man. Okay. Dr. Charles Richard Drew was a renowned surgeon and medical researcher who pioneered methods for long-term storage of blood plasma. Called the father of the Called the father of the blood bank, Dr. Drew is most notably known for organizing America's first large-scale blood bank and his work with the American Red Cross. Born in Washington, D.C., the former Chocolate City, Atlanta took it. Born in Washington, D.C. in 1904, Dr. Drew was a top student and athletic child who was accepted into Amherst College on an athletic scholarship. Though a skilled and celebrated athlete, ultimately a football injury and his sister's death during a citywide influenza epidemic fostered his interest in medicine. In 1933, Dr. Drew earned his medical degree at McGill University in Canada and began his remarkable, albeit short, career. That's a picture of him right there, okay? Dr. Charles Drew is referred to as the father of blood banking due to his critical contributions to the development of safe, effective blood collection system in the U.S. prior to the 1930s. Now, keep in mind, it just said prior to the 1930s. He was very young. He was in his 20s when he came up with this system. Whole blood was collected from donors for transfusion at the time it was needed. Literally, okay, never mind. Let me go back. Prior to the early 1930s, because it said U.S. with these two periods, but that threw me off right there. Okay. Prior to the early 1930s, whole blood was collected from donors for transfusion at the time it was needed. Literally, blood donors would be contacted at all hours of the night or night, all hours of the day or night to come to a hospital to donate fresh blood, which was immediately transfused into the patient. In 1932 in the Soviet Union and later in 1936 at Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota, and 1937 at Cook County Hospital in Illinois, donor blood was collected and stored prior to it being needed. This whole blood was then transfused to the patients at those local hospitals, but was not shared outside of those facilities where it was collected. In 1938, Dr. Charles Richard Drew, as part of his surgery training, studied at the laboratory of Dr. John Scudder, investigating shock in his treatment, including transfusions. At the time, whole blood could only be kept for 2 weeks because of the deterioration of the red blood cells. As part of his dissertation, Dr. Drew studied the storage conditions for blood, including investigating the effects of different anticoagulants, anticoagulant amounts, storage temperatures, and storage containers to determine the optimal conditions for storage. His thorough investigation of the medical literature, practices among the early blood banks, and evaluation of multiple variables allowed for optimization of the collection and storage of whole blood. This resulted in Dr. Drew creating standardized processes for donor screening and testing for infectious diseases, blood processes, and training of those collecting the blood. These standardized, reproducible processes have led to what we see in today's blood banks around the world. As a result of his work, he received a Doctor of Medicine in 1940 for his dissertation, Blood Banking. Crazy enough, this is a development that he came up with while in school. This was a student. Like I said, imagine had he gone on to live a full life, how much more he would have innovated. With the outbreak of World War II, there was a critical need for blood to support the war effort in Europe. The short shelf life of whole blood led Dr. Drew Scudder and E.H.S. Corwin to develop processes for the separation, preservation, and storage of plasma, the liquid component of the blood, from the cells so that it could be shipped and transfused to soldiers on the battlefield. This led to Blood for Britain, where 9 New York City area hospitals collected blood and separated and pooled the plasma, which was then bottled and tested for safety, shipped to Britain. While plasma processed in this way is no longer used for transfusion, Dr. Drew's work in this area was critical for saving countless lives during World War II and subsequent conflicts. When it ended in 1941, Blood for Britain had shipped 5,000 liters of plasma to Britain. That's crazy. Following Blood for Britain, Dr. Drew created a program through the American Red Cross to collect and freeze dry plasma for use by American forces during the war. This became the National Blood Donor Service, which subsequently developed into the American Red Cross Blood Services, which collects approximately half of the blood transfused in the U.S. today. Another component of this program developed by Dr. Drew was the creation of mobile blood collections that used trucks that would go to the donors to collect the blood. These mobile blood drives still exist today and account for a significant portion of the blood collected in the U.S. I'm pretty sure I donated during one of these mobile units before. Dr. Drew's critical research into optimizing and standardizing blood collections created large-scale collection centers that provided blood products to the military and the creation of mobile blood drives to encourage the blood donation by going to the donor, or why Dr. Charles Drew is considered the father of the blood bank. While blood banks existed prior to his work, his efforts and innovation directly led to the blood collection centers we see today. And that is Dr. Charles Drew. Okay, there's more down here. He was very, very light colored, so he probably could have passed for white. I'm not sure how light he is in color, but in these images right here, he looks pretty light. All right, so that's our final person that we want to talk about during Black History Month, and of course, Black History Month on a regular podcast never ends. So, it's not the end, of course. Shout out to everybody who works in education that showed their students the videos from this podcast channel for Black History Month, right? We made that stuff to be user-friendly for children, and I appreciate everybody who showed their kids those videos, all right? Appreciate y'all. Ooh. Okay. Now, I got a few topics that probably will take some time, but real quick, though. I came across something one time, and I was like, they were talking about, it was actually Shahrazad Ali. She was talking about required reading in schools. And it hit me. And I thought about required reading. They only require, and this is in every state curriculum in America. The required reading that's outside of textbooks, where they get into those fictional books, or even if it's not a fictional book, the autobiographical stuff or any of it, the vast majority of required reading in America is white culture reading. Not factual, not anything we need to progress in life, not anything we need to learn to do better as adults, just straight up things that white culture finds entertaining. They built it into the school system. Let's read on some of the required reading books, and y'all can see what I'm saying. And y'all will remember reading these books. This is a list of 100 required reading books in high schools, in American high schools. Number 1, To Kill a Mockingbird. Now, we're not going to read all of them, but I'm just going to show y'all this list of 100. To Kill a Mockingbird, Romeo and Juliet, The Great Gatsby, Lord of the Flies, Animal Farm, Macbeth, Of Mice and Men, Hamlet, The Catcher in the Rye, Scarlet Letter, 1984, The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, Diary of a Young Girl, The Odyssey, Pride and Justice, Fahrenheit 451, The Giver, Jane Eyre, The Crucible, Night, The Outsiders, Brave New World, Frankenstein, Julius Caesar, Great Expectations, The Midsummer's Night's Dream, The Grapes of Wrath, The Hobbit, Beowulf, Wuthering Heights, A Tale of Two Cities, The Little Prince, Flowers of Algernon, The Old Man and the Sea, Othello, The Canterbury Tales, Death of a Salesman, Separate Peace. Do y'all see what's going on here? A bunch of old white books. Right? Do y'all realize this is like built in? Here's the first black books, right? Where you get the number 40. So you hit the Importance of Being Earnest, The Pearl, Importance of Being Earnest, Slaughterhouse 5, The Taming of the Shrew, Oedipus Rex, Moby Dick, And then you get to the first black book at number 48. I know why the cage bird sings. You got a raisin in the sun. You got their eyes were watching God. These, and then there's another one in here, Zora Neale Hurston. Oh no, it was Toni Morrison. Beloved, then Beloved. There's 4 of 100 on this list, right? And if you are actually in areas where there's white school, now of course this list is not. You don't have to read all 100 of these books, right? But generally speaking, each school will pick from the books on this list, or some, not they're not picking from this list, but one of these books or multiple of these books on this list, you will see being read in the schools, probably from like middle school up to high school at some point, right? If we are being graded on how well we read and understand. Now, of course, if you can read, right? If you are a functional reader at your grade level, you should be able to read these books and answer questions about these books, right? The problem doesn't come in whether or not a person can or has the ability. To me, the problem is in why are these books a requirement? And then for you to require people to read books that are not for the benefit of their education, this was somebody's entertainment. And then we have to learn it for what reason, right? There's very few, but I would say virtually no black culture books mixed in with this, right? They don't make white kids in the middle of the country learn, they don't read Bill Cosby's Fatherhood as part of their curriculum, right? They don't read the new Jim Crow as part of like, hey, you're going to get a grade on this. We're going to take a test. We're going to spend 5 weeks reading this book. Every week, we're going to do 3 chapters. We're going to take quizzes every week. Half of your grade for this grading period is going to be based on what you know about this book as we read through it, right? Because as we read through the Odyssey back in those days, that was a grading period. That pretty much was like a grading period's worth of work that we had to do when I was in 7th grade or whatever grade it was, right? They're not reading, they're not reading Democracy Matters by Cornel West, and it's not part of their grade, right? They're not reading the Disintegration by Eugene Robinson as part of their grade. You see what I'm saying? Full grading period of English or language arts at that age. Cooked because you're not interested in whatever's going on, and it's not you can't relate to it. You can't reading William Shakespeare. Like, it's cool, it's good to understand English literature, but for it to be it's not for the benefit of anything. So it's only because they said so, and it's because what they're entertained by. I would love to see some people in education start to push, and it's not to say take these books off the list. Let there be more books from other cultures. We have been too impactful in writing in America. Even if they like the older English style of writing, they don't have any Phyllis Wheatley poems on here. They don't have any W.E.B. Du Bois, The Souls of Black Folk. They don't have that on here. The Miseducation of Negro is not on anybody's required reading list. And that's not to say it has to be those books, but whatever book that anybody deems, good enough to read, there should be a mixture of cultures. This list is a full cultural book list. There is literally nothing on this list that is required for a person to be more intelligent after they read it. They're not going to be smarter after they read it. Only thing they would have done is gathered some knowledge about a book that white people found interesting or entertaining in previous generations. That's literally it. There's no intellectual benefit to any of this. And I just wanted to point it out because maybe the right person will come across this podcast and say, you know what? I do want to have my kids read some of these other books. Race Matters, Democracy Matters, something like that, right? I do want to have my kids read The Miseducation of the Negro. But what's really going to help the country out is if the white schools start reading books that are not in their culture, right? Same way we had to grow up saying and finding how The Great Gatsby was a cool story to us, right? We had to make it cool to us. as black kids having to read that. We had to make Macbeth and Othello and Hamlet. We had to find something that was cool about these things to us. Meanwhile, the counterparts in America, they don't have to find a way to relate to anything except their own stuff, right? So it would be good if some administrators and some curriculum writers and some, faculty members would start to make a real stance and make a change and say, hey, you know what? And don't try to relate to black people through rap. I know that a lot of these white schools, the first thing they do is they want to incorporate some rap. That's how they connect with. No, we have literature too. There's Black American literature. Get into that. Okay. Don't put us in some subcategory somewhere, the culturals category. No, put it in the recommended reading list. Let kids get extra credit for reading that stuff quick. Let kids start getting graded on how well they know, The Color Purple. That's a book, right? Now, I wouldn't, it might be a little bit traumatic, but at least it's, something. That's why I said those other books. Let kids get graded based on how well they read Dr. Cosby's The Fatherhood, right? That's all I'm saying. Let's get some black stuff taught to white kids. Not Black History Month. Don't just bring up Martin Luther King, Black History Month. Let them learn disintegration. Okay? I wanted to point out real quick, there might be people who want me, I'm going to get into the Epstein files eventually. There's 6 million documents, 3 million have been released. They've been heavily redacted. There's not one long document that you can get and just scroll through it. You have to go to the Department of Justice's website and you have to type in exactly what you're looking for. And then you have to click a link to each one of those documents and download it separately. So it'll take forever. So, and then what I know about myself is I get consumed with things. Right. I get obsessed with stuff. So I don't want to just dive into that. It's a very nasty case right there. And so I got to really figure out the best way I want to approach it. But I know it's the hot topic. I know there's so many documents still that people haven't gone through. And I know a lot of people in our space, like for what I do, haven't gone through it yet and really tore it apart. So I'm going to get to it. I do want to talk about real quick, though, not in depth. But it's funny to me how there's times when sexism and patriarchy actually can work in the benefit of a woman that's in the criminal enterprise. Not to say sexism and patriarchy benefit women. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying there are times when sexism and patriarchy can work in the criminal woman's benefit. For instance, everybody looks at this entire thing, the Epstein case, the Epstein files, the Epstein Island, the Epstein everything, operation, the Epstein RICO, the FRICO, all of this stuff is the Epstein. Where a little bit of history will tell you, Epstein came up regular, white. He was mentored by a few rich people, and it helped him make his way up through the ranks. Allegedly, the mastermind behind this operation that they have going on is Ghislaine Maxwell. She is not the second in command. I'm not sure how it was allowed to flip that whole thing up and just make her the right hand man of the boss. The Epstein was the evil boss type of thing, and he was evil, but he wasn't the boss though. Maxwell is the one who was raised in this type of activity. This is what she was raised in from a kid. This is what her dad was into this business, right? Her dad was into the blackmailing powerful people around the world with things that he had them doing with people he set them up with. That was her dad's business, her dad's underground business, right? Do a little, and we'll talk about it more in depth when I get into these quote unquote Epstein files or the Maxwell case, right? But because she's the boss, but because she's a woman, people don't think a woman would ever be a head of an enterprise like this. So everybody involved allowed it to be called the Epstein, whatever, because the real boss is still alive and everybody who's scared of any of this case is still scared of that person. This is why Jeffrey Epstein died and people still weren't talking. But this is also why Jeffrey Epstein was killed so quickly when he got locked up. People think he was killed because he was about to tell on the politicians. He was killed because they didn't want him to tell on the boss. People not thinking about how did a person that's that powerful get erased and nobody seeing what was going on. It's because the person with the real power made the call. Not Trump. The person with the person that this is what they do. Right? This is what they've been doing. They inherited it from their father, Ghislaine Maxwell. Nobody knows where she's locked up at. They don't even think she's in jail. She's disappeared. She's the boss of this operation. I'm not just saying that on some like trying to be a contrarian thing. There's like documentaries out there about her family. This is what her dad did, man. He had a crazy, like, go look up her dad's story. Her dad's got a crazy story. This is her operation. Epstein, I wouldn't call him a pawn, but Epstein was one of the people being manipulated by the boss, right? He had some little evil sexual proclivities. She knew about it. So she made him do what she needed him to do and made him the face of it. If somebody was really running an operation like this, that was this powerful, that had this many people wrapped up like this, do you think they would have their name on literally everything? His name is on the jets. His name is on the properties. His name is on all the properties in multiple locations. His name is on all the manifests. His name is on all the emails. Do y'all think the person that was really in charge of an enterprise like this would have their name on literally everything? Do y'all think the person that was in charge of everything would be emailing the people that they blackmailing directly? Like, I'm just emailing you directly and I'm inviting you to come get some kids. I mean, do we really? Is that what we really think? There's no way we really think that. Okay. Look up that lady's history, man. She's out here running around still because the person that they let take the fall, they wiped them out quick too. Right. So like I said, when I get wrapped up sometimes in this stuff, that's why some stuff I can't go too deep into it because I will get wrapped and consumed in it. But the little bit of digging I did do, Jeffrey Epstein was not the boss of this operation. This is not the Epstein files. This is not Epstein's operation, Epstein's RICO. This is Ghislaine Maxwell's operation. Okay. Let's move on to the people who feel like, let me go to this, man, because this is just, I didn't get to talk to y'all last week about the Baftas, but I'm going to talk to y'all about it now. Hold on. Let's talk about the Baftas. Okay. BAFTA award. Look, all I typed in was BAFTA, and the number one thing that popped up was the Mark Siegel racial slur at BAFTA. That's the number one story that come out of that award show. And we're going to get into it. Okay. We are going to get into this thing. Now, what is the BAFTA? The BAFTA, or BAFTA Academy Film Awards, the British Academy Film Awards, more commonly known as the BAFTAs or BAFTA Awards, is an annual film awards show hosted by the British Academy of Film and Television Arts to honor the best British and international film contribution. Excuse me. The ceremony was first held in London at Odeon. Okay. Whatever. Now, let's see here. Let me read. Let's just read this little. This is from Fox News. He's a doctor. Dr. Mark Siegel, a racial slur at BAFTA and what tolerance really means. Scottish he's not a doctor. Scottish activist John Davison's medical condition led to involuntary outbursts while Michael B. Jordan and Delroy Lindo presented at the 79th BAFTAs. Or did it say BAFTAs? Yeah. All right. The 79th British Academy, the BAFTAs, were broadcast on BBC on Sundays, February 22nd. As Fox News reported, the BBC was forced to issue an apology after a racial slur was shouted by an audience member with Tourette's syndrome during the BAFTA broadcast. This audience member was none other than the renowned Scottish Tourette's activist John Davison. All right, Fox. I was rocking with, you know what I'm saying, just if this was like a general news story. I'm not into whatever politics y'all are into, but at least, come on. Like, we start sentences with capital letters, guys. Okay. Don't throw me off. I'm already having a hard enough time reading here, okay? Just to connect with Gavin Newsom, who thinks he's connecting with people by saying he can't read. We'll talk about that another time. John Davison, who has severe Tourette syndrome and was the inspiration for the BAFTA-nominated biographical film I Swear, was heard shouting the N-word while black actors Michael B. Jordan and Delroy Lindo were on stage. During the other portions of the program, Davison was heard shouting profanities, including F you and shut the F up. Beginning with John's Not Angry, a documentary about John Davison's behavior due to Tourette's syndrome released in 1989, to I Swear, which won multiple awards at the BAFTAs this week, Davison has been an incredible ambassador for the disease, culminating in his being awarded an MBE, Most Excellent Order of the British Empire, in 2019. It is now ironic that the very unprovoked and unbridled manifestation of this disease, which led him to say again that he feels ashamed, are the very manifestations that require forbearance and understanding on the part of others. Actors at the BAFTA Awards who said that Davison was being racist for hurling racial epithets are not correct. His outbursts are organic, were a manifestation of the disease, not evidence of some underlying belief that many people try to mask. The BBC has admitted fault for not editing them out, but performers and presenters at the BAFTA should also have been forewarned. I don't believe that Davison should have been barred from being present at the very awards that celebrated his condition and the need to accept it. John Davison is 54 years old and first knew there was something seriously wrong at the age of 9 when he began skipping down the street and licking the lampposts of London. This was followed by episodes of spitting food at family members, which led to his father leaving the family altogether. John Davison, the man whose true story beat the A-list at the BAFTAs, has refused to be defined by his condition. This is inspiring to who? But Davison has never given into the debilitating life of severe Tourette's. In fact, his advocacy for increased awareness is heroic and has led to growing effort to destigmatize an embarrassing and demoralizing disease, which led almost 50% of its adult sufferers to consider suicide. Davison among them. Okay. Let me see what we okay, I'll read the rest of that. Davison has lived a life of stress and shame and has had a heart attack as well as a heart surgery. He has tried various treatments, including antipsychotic medications, which he didn't tolerate, and a wristband called Neopulse, which releases electrical pulses in an attempt to decrease the urge to tick. It worked for him to some extent. Deep brain stimulation is a promising treatment for severe Tourette's that is still being studied. Keep in mind that Tourette's is a spectrum disorder, meaning it is a range of associated symptoms. Tics can be mild, repetitive body movements, twitches, or sounds, all the way up to the coprolalia that Davison exhibited, which involves the involuntary outbursts of obscene words or socially inappropriate and derogatory remarks. It affects only 10 to 30% of Tourette sufferers. Most importantly, the lack of control that it causes does not reveal underlying racism, disrespect, or rage. It is a neurological condition involving increased disruption of dopamine releases and sensitivity, as well as problems with the limbic system of the brain. With over 300,000 people suffering from some form of Tourette's in the UK and more than 1 million in the US, up to 1% of the world's population living with some form of the disorder. It is important that we pursue not only advanced treatments, but also greater sensitivity and empathy. Okay. That story is the context for what we're about to get into. Okay. John Davison. Tourette syndrome. He's an advocate. This is a picture of him on the left right here, right? Let us read about Tourette syndrome. If this is your bus stop, peace out. I appreciate you for coming through. We're about to get into it. Okay. Tourette syndrome. Tourette syndrome. I'm stupid. Tourette syndrome is a disorder that involves repetitive movements or unwanted sounds, tics that can't be easily controlled. For instance, you might repeatedly blink your eyes, shrug your shoulders, or blurt out unusual sounds or offensive words. Tics usually show up between ages 2 and 15, with the average being around 6 years of age. Males are about 3 to 4 times more likely than females to develop Tourette syndrome. Although there's no cure for Tourette syndrome, treatments are available. Many people with Tourette syndrome don't need treatment when symptoms aren't troublesome. Tics often lessen or become controlled after the teen years. Symptoms. Now, the reason I'm getting into this is because I think it's important to understand what Tourette's is before we get to spewing things. Okay. I'm gonna go over to the National Institute of Neurological Disorders. This is this is a page on neurological disorders. I wanted to start researching this, right? And because it's hard for me to hear that something is uncontrollable. When I hear uncontrollable or when I hear uncontrollable, I immediately go neurology. So we need to understand the neurological implications, or what it means for a person's neural pathways when they have something going on that is uncontrollable. Because if it's uncontrollable and it's happening with your body, that means your brain made it happen without your conscious input, right? So then I said, okay, well, it's time to get medical. I'm not just going to the activists. I appreciate the activists telling what they feel like they need to tell, but we need to get into the science of this whole thing. Okay, because I can't go by what the activists say. They don't sound like they understand it too well. They just sound like they're regurgitating the same talking points, but I have not heard anybody bring up what's happening in the brain that causes this or anything like this. Specifically, what I wanted to explore is coprolalia, which is the outburst of obscenities, right? Specifically. But first, I wanted to start with Tourette's just to follow the pathway, right? Now, Tourette syndrome. What is Tourette's? Tourette syndrome is a neurological disorder that may cause sudden, unwanted, or uncontrolled, rapid and repeated movements or vocal sounds called tics. TS, that's Tourette syndrome, is one of a group of disorders of the developing nervous system called tics. Okay. Tic disorders. The motor involving body. Okay, the motor and the vocal tics of TS come and go over time, varying in type, frequency, location, and severity. If you have tics, you cannot stop your body from having them. The first symptom usually occur between the ages of 5 and 10, generally in the head and neck area. These may progress to include the muscles in the torso, arm, and legs. Motor tics generally occur before the development of vocal tics. Tourette syndrome affects more boys than girls. Most people with Tourette syndrome experience their worst tic symptoms in their early teen years, but tics typically lessen and become controlled by the late teens, early 20s. For some people, TS can be a chronic condition with symptoms that last into adulthood. In some cases, tics may worsen in adulthood. TS is not a degenerative condition, one that continues to get worse. And individuals with TS have a normal life expectancy. So classification. If you have TS, you may experience simple or complex motor tics. They may range from a very mild to severe, although most cases are mild. Simple tics are sudden, brief, repetitive movements that involve a few muscle groups. They are more common than complex tics. Simple tics often precede complex tics. Simple motor tics include eye blinking and other eye movement, facial grimacing, shoulder shrugging, head and shoulder jerking. Simple vocal tics include repetitive throat clearing, sniffing, barking, grunting. Complex tics are distinct, coordinating patterns of movements involving several muscle groups in different parts of the body. Complex motor tics might include facial grimacing combined with a head twist and a shoulder shrug. Other complex motor tics may appear purposeful, including sniffing or touching an object, hopping, jumping, bending, twisting. Complex vocal tics may include repeating one's own words, phrases, repeating others' words or phrases, echolalia, using vulgar, obscene, or swear words, coprolalia. Some of the most dramatic and disabling tics may include motor movements that result in self-harm, such as punching yourself in the face, or vocal tics such as echolalia or swearing. Some tics are preceded by an urge or sensation in the head muscle, in the affected muscle group, premonitory urge. You may feel like you have to complete a tic in a certain way or a certain number of times to relieve the urge or decrease the sensation. So they pretty much compare it to like with a sneeze, like it feels when you have this tic, if you fight against it, it'll create a physical reaction in you where it'll feel like it'll start to bother you or hinder you from going forward. Like you have to, it's an itch that you have to scratch, or sneeze that you have to get out. Like you have to get the tic out. And if you don't, it could be debilitating. Like you won't be able to move forward. Your tics may worsen with excitement or anxiety, get better during calm, focused activities. Certain physical experiences can trigger or worsen tics. For example, tight collars may trigger neck tics. Hearing another person sniff or clear their throat may trigger similar sounds. Tics do not go away during light sleep, but are often significantly diminished. They go away completely in deep sleep. Although the symptoms of TS are unwanted and unintentional, involuntary, some people can suppress or otherwise manage their tics to minimize the impact on functioning. However, people with TS often report a substantial buildup in tension when suppressing their tics to the point where they feel that the tic must be expressed against their will. Tics in response to an environmental trigger can appear to be voluntary or purposeful, but are not. Okay. Diagnosing TS. To diagnose TS, a doctor will ask if you have the presence of both motor and vocal tics that occur several times a day, every day, or intermittently for at least 1 year, onset tics before 18, tics not caused by medications, other substances, or medical conditions. Common tics are often diagnosed by primary care provider, pediatrician, or mental health care specialist. Atypical symptoms, different from classical symptoms, or atypical presentations, for example, symptoms that begin in adulthood, may require additional expertise for diagnosis. There are no blood, laboratory, or imaging tests needed for diagnosis. In rare cases, neuroimaging studies such as magnetic MRI or computerized tomography, electroencephalogram, that's EEG studies, or certain blood tests may be used to rule out other conditions that may be confused with TS. It may take some time to receive a formal diagnosis of TS. Families and physicians unfamiliar with the disorder might think mild and even moderate tic symptoms may be significant, a part of the development phase, or result of another condition. Okay. There's no cure, but they treat some of the symptoms. Now, I want to focus on, real quick, diagnosing. There are no tests for Tourette's. There's no blood test for it. There's no scans that can find it. There's no imaging, right? This is just self-reported, and the doctor will go by what you say is happening and diagnose you or not diagnose you. But the diagnosis pretty much comes from the patient, what the patient says, or what the doctor observes from what the patient presents. To me, that's where we start the revealing that when we start to say there are no blood tests, no laboratory or image tests that could show Tourette's or that could aid in the diagnosis of Tourette's, that's when it starts to open up things a little bit for me to let's dig a little bit deeper. Somebody's doing fireworks outside, so it's probably loud right now. Okay. I wanted to go now look into specifically coprolalia? Because that's the one I'm specifically confused as to why it is being framed as some sort of, science-backed disorder. It's not backed by science. Let me just say it right now. It's not backed by science. Again, you get diagnosed with it by going to your doctor and telling them, hey, I keep cussing and I don't want to cuss. That's how you get diagnosed with it. They can't say, okay, you keep cussing. Okay, well let me hook you up to the MRI. Let me look at this part of your brain, see if you have these XYZ markers that say you have coprolalia. They can't do that. They can't say, okay, well let me test the blood. Let me see what type of enzymes you got flowing through your system that's causing this. Let me go look at your brain to see if you got these lesions that cause this. And if you have these lesions, then what can we do to support that? But they do say lesions do cause coprolalia too. But it's not that, they don't know how to, they can't check for it, right? There's no check for it. There's just you reported it to your doctor. Your primary care physician just said, okay, well, it's coprolalia. That's a symptom of Tourette's. Okay. Coprolalia, let's get to the etymology. Coprolalia comes from the Greek kopros, which means, or kopros, which means dung or feces, and lalin, which means to babble. So it literally means to be talking some bullshit. It's a tick-like occurrence that involves non-intentional, obscene, and socially inappropriate vocalizations. In 10 to 33% of cases, it may correlate with tic disorders, in particular Tourette syndrome. All right, now, in particular, what made me say this is really, I'm having a hard time making sense of this. What really made me say it is because the words that are considered offensive or obscene or swear words are very cultural specific, right? They're culturally specific. They are society specific. How is it possible that a neurological disease can make you only say things like when it flares up? The only thing it pinpoints are the things that the society you live in find issue with. How is that possible? Not to say it's not possible, but if you're going to say it's possible, you have to give me, this is just me, you have to tell me some scientific reason why a neurological disorder would only pinpoint words that are deemed unfit for a censored society, or words that are considered obscene in the society you live in, right? Because the words that English speakers yell out, the N word, right? Hard R. What are Chinese people yelling out? Right? When there's a Chinese person with Tourette syndrome, what do they yell out when they have coprolalia? Do they yell out the N word too? Is it just something deep within them yelling the N word out, or they're is their involuntary tick causing them to yell out some random word that's considered bad in China? How is it possible that a neurological disorder could cause you to yell out just the words that are bad where you live at? How is it possible? I'm saying if it's involuntary, right? Because the way that the advocates are speaking on it, they're saying these are not things that they think for real. These things, they do not think this stuff. They don't feel it. It's not in their head at all. It's just somehow the disorder is making it come out. Something that's not in them is making them come out. How come the disease doesn't make them speak, them randomly say words in other languages that are obscene? How is it only the obscene words where you live? How is it only the obscene words in the groups that you're within? How is that possible? I'm saying how is it possible because this is not a rhetorical question. I'm looking for the neurological proof of it. I'm looking for a scientist somewhere to explain how a neurological disorder will pinpoint obscene words. What is it about the wiring of the brain that tells these electrical signals which words are obscene? Again, the claim is that these are not things that are actually on that person's mind. They're just coming from nowhere. They're coming out of thin air. They're coming out of nowhere. The things that they're yelling out. This is the claim of the advocates. These things are coming from nowhere and it's involuntary. Right? Let's read. Coprolalia also occurs in patients with brain lesions, senility, or senility. That's like senile. And in those with neurodegenerative and autoimmune disorders. It can also occur in association with seizure disorders in ictal or post-ictal status. This activity outlines the identification, evaluation, and management of coprolalia. It highlights the role of the interprofessional healthcare team. Oh, excuse me. If y'all wanted to read it with me. Okay. Oh, I was already past that. Now what am I doing? Okay. Coprolalia also occurs in patients with brain lesions. Okay. There are also, okay. Now, the etiology, right? The functional neuroanatomical basis of coprolalia is unclear. This means we're saying that it's involuntary, but we really don't know. We can't figure it out neurologically. We don't see, they're saying, because this says neuroanatomical. That means we don't know what part of the brain is causing this, okay? Among the different hypotheses to explain it is the belief that the limbic circuit could have an important role in the pathophysiology of coprolalic behaviors. That's the hypotheses, right? They haven't the study there's no study they attached to it to say this is where we got that from. Well, it does. Here we go. Let me see what this says. Number 2 right here. Let's see. Okay, here you go. This is the study. This is they were studying somebody, but I'll read the study another time. Other hypotheses have been constructed to explain the pathophysiology of Tourette's that describes the development of tic, whether motor or phonatory, and coprolalia. One theory is that the brain regions that are involved in Tourette, which are the limbic system and the basal ganglia, are equivalent to those of the regions involved in reproductive behavior, sex control, and primitive animals. Therefore, tics and coprolalia could result from the dysfunction in these regions and appear as primitive vocal and motor functions. Another hypothesis suggests that coprolalia is a part of obsessive compulsive disorder spectrum, which results from a failure to inhibit part of the cortical striato-thalamocortical pathway, which composes the basal ganglia. Let me read that part again, because now we're getting somewhere. Even if I read that a little bit choppy, I understood what it said. Now let me read it again. Another hypothesis suggests that coprolalia is a part of the obsessive compulsive disorder spectrum, which results from a failure to inhibit a part of the cortical striato thalamocortical pathway, which composes the basal ganglia. What that's saying is it can't. So now with this improperly functioning basal ganglia, it's not stopping me. It's not inhibiting a behavior that's in my mind. They're saying this is not something that's on their mind. But every single piece of science that I look at that's related to causes with Tourette syndrome all point to the basal ganglia or basal ganglia. And the basal ganglia or basal ganglia it's the part of the brain that is about inhibiting or stopping yourself from doing things you don't want to do, or helping you do things you want to do, right? Let's go over and read about that, right? So it's this part of the brain here. You see, is deep within the brain. Okay, let me see if we can get a good picture. Okay, it's deep within the brain. Okay, let's read about the functions here. The basal ganglia are a group of subcortical nuclei located deep within the brain's forebrain and midbrain, crucial for regulating voluntary motor control, procedural learning, habit formation, and emotional functions. They act as a gatekeeping mechanism, balancing direct and indirect pathways to initiate desired movements while inhibiting unwanted ones. Right? Key anatomical structures. The basal ganglia consist of several interconnected distinct nuclei. Striatum, composed of the caudate nucleus and the putamen, which are the primary input stations receiving signals from the cerebral cortex. The globus pallidus, composed of internal GPI and external GPE segments involved in processing and outputting signals. Subthalamic nucleus plays a role in the indirect inhibitory pathway. Substantia nigra, it's probably black in color, located in the midbrain, comprising the pars compacta and pars reticulata. Okay, a bunch of Latin words. Okay, I'm following along, even if I can't read them. Primary functions: motor control. They fine-tune movements, determining which actions to allow or inhibit. Action selection and habit formation. They play a key role in choosing behaviors and automating routines. Cognitive and emotional functions, involved in reward, motivation, and executive decision-making via loops to the prefrontal cortex and limbic system. Dysfunction of the basal ganglia is associated with various movement disorders, including Parkinson's and Huntington disease. Symptoms of dysfunction often include difficulties with starting, stopping, or sustaining movement. Now, to me, that makes sense, right? If this part of the brain is not working properly, it makes, in my head, it makes sense to me that I would shake, right? That's something that if you just send a bunch of pulses, like, if a bunch of pulses come from the brain to different parts of your body, it'll make you shake, right? It'll make you shake or it'll cause, I could see that, right? That's me, or that mess with your eyes or stuff like that. I can't see a world where improperly functioning part of the brain makes you scream the N word. That's me. If it wasn't in your mind. Here's the thing. Like I said, everything that I look up about the neurological functionality of Tourette's points to the basal ganglia or basal ganglia, but maybe basal ganglia, right? Let me see if I can get a pronunciation. Everything that I look up, right? It points to this part of the brain, right? Basal ganglia seems to be at the root of what is called the Tourette syndrome, right? But remember, I told y'all a long time ago, when you do research, you don't research, how does Tourette's cause people to cuss? That's not how you research things, to me. You learn about all of the components and then you find out how to relate. And I feel like that's how you can put together the best picture. When I do research separately on the basal ganglia, nothing about it says these are not things that are already in a person, right? Nothing about dysfunctioning basal ganglia says it's going to develop things that are not already in your mind or in your body to do, right? So what I mean is, when you have these involuntary shakes, your body is doing this, shaking like this, because your body is already programmed to do. That's something that's in you. That's a movement that's already in you. It's not making up a new movement for you to do, right? So this dysfunctioning or improperly functioning basal ganglia is also not going to make up new words for you to say that you've never said before. There's no scientific document, study, research that you are going to find that is going to say that the improperly functioning basal ganglia is going to cause you to say things that were never on your mind. There's no, except when you go directly into coprolalia, and then they start to say, yeah, it's going to make you say stuff that's not on your mind. But if you research that function of the brain by itself, it doesn't say anything like that. Right? You can't find anywhere. And that's the reason why you can't find anything to explain why they are only saying things that are offensive where they are. Right? When they yell out things, they're not yelling out things that are offensive in China. These English people are not yelling out things that are offensive, that are offensive in Brazil. How do you specifically only yell out the thing that's offensive to the black people around you? How is that possible? There's nothing about neurology that says this thing is going to go wrong and it's going to cause you to start saying things that were never on your mind. It's going to cause you to blurt out things that you've never said before. I know people want to say it's ableist to examine things like this. It's ableist to not agree with whatever they say. That's not ableist. I'm looking for the science to back up what you're saying. That's all I'm trying to find. And it doesn't matter where I look. Everything about coprolalia says we don't know. We don't know why it's doing that. We can't see. We can't measure it. We can't test for it. That's just what the patient is telling us. Everything that you look up about this disorder says the patient themselves said that they couldn't stop saying it, and they never said it before and it wasn't on their mind. That comes from the patient that it wasn't on their mind. That don't mean it's true. And hopefully, look, here's the thing. I wouldn't get into it this much if y'all wasn't running around yelling nigga. Let's just be real. I wouldn't get into it like this, but the thing that y'all are yelling out, like I said, y'all aren't yelling out the Jewish slur. How is it that the Jewish slur is not ever the thing that gets yelled out? How? There's slurs for pretty much everybody. How do they always skip over certain slurs? And again, the people in China with coprolalia, what are they yelling out? I'm not saying they're not yelling anything out. I'm saying, what are they yelling? What are they saying? Right? In the clip where Michael B. Jordan and Delroy Lindo are on the stage, the person didn't just say the N-word. He screamed it. I'm not even getting on the fact that the Baftas could have edited it out and they chose not to. I'm not even going to get on the fact that the Baftas edited other things out and didn't edit that out. We don't even got to talk about that. He screamed the N-word while two black people were on stage. Now, if I wanted to go back and listen to the whole broadcast, I would guarantee you he didn't scream the N-word when there was white people up on the stage. I can't promise that, but I would bet that didn't happen because the only clip circulating is the one where he yelled it when two black men was up there. That's not to say he was calling them that. But if what we're seeing about Tourette's, he had it on his mind, but he couldn't stop himself from saying it. That's what happens when the basal ganglia is not working right. Something comes to your mind and you can't stop yourself from presenting it. That's when something goes wrong with this part of the brain, you can't stop yourself from saying what you're thinking. That's what this is. That's what this is saying. Primary functions play a key role in choosing behaviors and automating routines. Determining which actions to allow or inhibit. That's what the basal ganglia does. The basal ganglia doesn't make you yell the N-word at black people. The basal ganglia stops you from inhibiting yourself from doing it. Right? This is the Baftas. There was a whole bunch of white people up on the stage. Did they edit out every time that he yelled out the N-word for some white people up there? Or did it just not happen? Right? I'm not of the mindset that just because somebody says something that make it true. I'm not going for that. I'm not of that mindset. I never will be. You're going to have to show me, because when you say something is involuntary, you're talking about neurology. And if you're going to make these hard stances about neurology, then you need to be able to prove it. If you can't prove it, then I don't got to believe it. I'm not even saying that you're wrong. I'm saying you're going to have to show me with more than just because the patient said so. They went into the doctor and said, I can't stop saying the N-word. Come on. That's not neurology. That's not how the brain works. The brain don't work like that. The brain has never worked like that. The brain has never worked to make you yell things out that are not on your mind that you've never said before. It just don't. Only things that are offensive to the people around you, does that sound right to y'all? Come on, man. Even with me butchering all of these words, I still understand what they mean. I'm just saying them wrong. You see what I'm saying? I'm just saying them wrong. I want to read something one more time because I need y'all to understand. These are scientists. This is literally coming from the National Center for Biotechnology Information. That's where this coprolalia part is coming from. And the Tourette's page is coming directly from the National Institute of Neurological Disorders and Stroke, right? So when they say the functional neuroanatomical basis of coprolalia is unclear, when they say functional neurological basis, that means the neurological cause of this thing is unclear. We don't know. And then they list a bunch of hypotheses. We don't know, but y'all need to respect this neurological disorder. No, not respecting that. I'm not respecting a disorder that makes you say the N-word, get loud at everybody black. I'm not doing it. I don't respect it. Epidemiology. The prevalence of coprolalia is unclear. It ranges from very low to very high numbers in different series, but precise percentages are difficult to determine. Yeah, because y'all can't measure it. It's funny because every other page is talking about 10 to 20 to 30% and all this, but this page is talking about the prevalence of coprolalia is unclear. It ranges from very low to very high numbers in different series. What? But precise percentages are difficult to determine. Most studies have shown a higher male to female ratio. The same higher male to female ratio is present for patients with Tourette's, whose, what does that say? Whose pathognomonic sign is coprolalia. In Japan, the number of reported cases in tertiary university centers range from 27 to 39 compared to primary care practices whose prevalence approaches approximately 8%. In terms of tics, which coprolalia is a part of, they start to arise between the ages 4 and 6 and increase in severity when they're closer to pre-adolescence. The rates are also higher in whites compared to Hispanic and African American. I bet it is. Evaluation. The patient evaluation is through an interview with a detailed clinical history assessment of the type of tic disorders. The non-controllable uttering may become apparent during the interview as well. For diagnosis of Tourette syndrome, they must meet DSM-5 criteria. Let me read that again. I'm going to look at y'all again. I'm looking at the camera like a sitcom. For diagnosis of Tourette syndrome, they must meet DSM-5 criteria. Having multiple motor tics and vocal tics cannot happen at the same time. Tics must be present for at least 1 year minimum, multiple times per day and almost every day. Tics began before the age of 18. Symptoms are not due to drugs and medical conditions. DSM-5, Diagnostics and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, 5th edition. Diagnostics and Statistics Manual of Mental Disorders is the most comprehensive, current, and critical resource for clinical practice available to today's mental health clinicians and researchers. DSM-5 TR includes the fully revised text and references, updated diagnostic criteria, Now, excuse me. Can somebody help me understand why a neurological disorder has to meet DSM-5 criteria? Mental disorders is different from neurological disorders and diseases. Very different. For the diagnosis of Tourette syndrome, they must meet DSM-5 criteria, which are having multiple motor tics and vocal tics, cannot happen at the same time. Tics must be present for at least 1 year minimum, multiple times per day and almost every day. Tics began before the age of 18 years old, and symptoms are not due to drugs or other medical conditions. DSM-5. What do y'all think about that? Let's read something real quick before we go, okay? Let's read something real quick. The difference between neurological and mental disorders. Neurological disorders primarily involve physical issues in the nervous system, while mental disorders or psychiatric disorders primarily affect thoughts, emotions, and behaviors. Neurological disorders. These conditions stem from structural, biochemical, and electrical abnormalities in the nervous system, which include the brain, spinal cord, and nerves. Example, Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's disease, epilepsy, and multiple sclerosis. These disorders often have observable physical origins, such as brain injuries or degenerative processes, and are typically diagnosed through medical imaging and neurological exams. Mental disorders, also known as psychiatric disorders, these primarily affect an individual's thinking, emotions, and behavior. Conditions such as depression, anxiety disorder, schizophrenia, and bipolar disorder fall into this category. Unlike neurological disorders, mental illnesses may not have clear physical changes observable through traditional medical imaging, and their diagnosis often relies on psychological evaluation and patient history. Do I need to read that again? They are diagnosing coprolalia with the DSM-5, but pushing it to the world as an involuntary neurological disorder. I don't mean to do this right now, but I just couldn't. I could not do it. This is my tic. The thing that I can't inhibit myself from doing is doing deep dives into things that don't make sense to me. I couldn't stop myself from reading up on this. Y'all are telling black people to stop being sensitive, stop being ableist. And then y'all are telling us all of this stuff as if it's backed by some type of science, as if the scientists can back this up, as if you have neurological proof of any of it. Whole time, the doctors can't find the cause of it. They're diagnosing it with an evaluation, a series of questions that they ask to a patient. They can't find it on any imaging. They can't test for it in the blood. They can't look at your brain and see it. But you're telling me this is a neurological thing. Not to say it's not. But until y'all prove it, until you show what it is, you can't tell us that we just need to be okay with people having a disorder that makes them say the N-word. We don't have to be okay with that. We don't have to be okay with that. Sorry. Now, once y'all prove it, and y'all get on the same page and agree whether this is a mental disorder or a neurological disorder, once y'all figure out where y'all want to classify this thing, and then we start to get some real studies to say, okay, when people go through XYZ, it causes them to blurt out obscenities. When y'all get on the same page and y'all find some science to back it up, then I will support us calming down and being a little bit more understanding. But we're not ableists with this disability that y'all can't even really define. The only thing that y'all know is, they just involuntarily say things they don't want to say. specifically things that are offensive to the people that are around them. They just involuntarily say things that are offensive to the people that are around them. Of course, it's more prevalent in white males than everybody else. I'm not going for that. Sorry. Now, what I will tell you is I'm open to any data that you can send me. Anybody can send me anything and I will read up on it, learn it, and figure out, okay, I can say, okay. But the scientists here, and I'm reading directly from these people, the scientists here say, we don't know. National Institute of Health, we don't know. National Biology Institute, we don't know. But somehow all of you anti-black people on the internet, y'all got it figured out. Coprolalia, y'all got it figured out. The doctors don't even know if it's neurological or mental. I'm not going for it, man. Sorry. Get with me, man. Please make sure you like the video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Make sure you comment your thoughts below. Make sure you share this video. You know what I'm saying? If you made it to the end, I appreciate you. This is much longer than I expected it to be. I have to repeat myself. I tell y'all, when I'm trying to make sure that y'all are hearing what I'm saying, I have to repeat myself. Sorry for me butchering all of the Latin terms. I've never really been good fluently reading those Latin terms when I start getting into neurology. They have not converted a lot of that stuff to English terms. They left it as Latin. I'm not mad at it though, but I don't read it as fast as I can read other things. So shout out to them for that. I wouldn't change it still. Like, we need to learn those terms. Okay. Me specifically, I need to learn them because I love talking about them. Please have a good evening. I'm going to reach out to the people who won the shirts. Let me read those names again. Rebecca Starr, shout out to you. Lena White, shout out to you. Tac2 Social, shout out to you. I appreciate y'all. I really appreciate y'all, man. I'm about to get up out of here, man. Y'all be easy. We gone.